Welcome. This is the Tattoo Weekly. Holy Moses, I can't believe it. It's been like years now. Every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard, we're beaming out live. This is the part of the show where we're testing it. So if you're watching on Facebook or Instagram or any of the spots, then post some comments in the comment spots, and then we could put up your clever thoughts and where you're beaming in from on the screen. You can see yourself on the videos. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about what's going on while we're doing the testing and making sure all the technical stuff is working. My name is Gabe Ripley. I'm here with Fawn Baker, and we are your hosts for the Tattoo Weekly, where we talk about tattoo artists, tattoo studios, tattoo news, tattoo events, lots of things, tattoos. Today, we're going to be interviewing Whitney Schiller. She's beaming in from somewhere around the country. We missed her a couple shows ago when we started talking about I think it was like tattooing under anesthetic or some sort of hot
Yeah.
topic of the well, I guess of the new future of tattooing. In any event, tag a friend that likes tattooing. Let us know where you're beaming in from, and I'm going to get the official introduction started. Okay. Welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Network, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are all encouraged to join into these live streams, to join us in real-world events, and ultimately to inspire and create better tattoos and art together. We're beaming out 4 or 5 days a week, and with your help, have evolved into a pretty fun network of quality live streams and on-demand tattoo shows. You can find Reinventing in all of these fine places, either of the app stores, pick your poison, Apple or Google. Do a search for Reinventing the Tattoo app. There's the YouTube channel. You might be watching on that now. There's the Roku channel, if you might be watching the replay in the middle of the night off of your TV. There's 12 channels going on any given time on the Roku channel, including the Drunk Critique. We got to take that off at some point. All of the major podcasts state directories carry Apple, Spotify. Just do a search for Reinventing the Tattoo, and you're going to find it. Speaking of Reinventing the Tattoo, you can always go to reinventingthetattoo.com, join the newsletter, and there are three ways to get a hold of Reinventing the Tattoo content. That is, the book has been updated into a digital format, and you can get it all at once, which is crazy because it's like the whole book and it's all of the guest sections and new chapters and new videos and new webinars all at once. But some people want it all at once. Some people read the book and just want to get it. Or there's weekly installments. Check out the Reinventing the Tattoo Evolution class. I think it gets started in a month or two. It's either starting up in a month or two or just started in a month or two because it's 4 months. So 3 times a year enrollment opens up, and the whole group takes the lessons 1 week at a time. And then every Monday they get together and do live exercises. It's pretty awesome. But that's what supports all of this stuff, along with the live events. Check out reinventingthetattoo.com/live. And the next event is at Red Tree. The next Reinventing event is at Red Tree in June. Although you could always catch us at Hell City before. No matter what year you're watching this, we're going to be heading to Hell City in Columbus in the spring. So you can catch up with us there, hellcity.com. Okay. Positive reviews in the channels down below. Constructive criticism or invitations to your tattoo shop or event management at reinventingthetattoo.com. I'm going to close this off, and Fawn will hopefully hop on pretty soon.
I'm still
and
here, Gabe. My input just froze for a second, so I've been here the whole time. Did I
Fantastic.
freeze again? I froze again. Well, I'm here.
The
I'm here
computers are always
in spirit.
never end, man. Do they? So one video that I do have fired up here. Maybe we could get started with it if while you can get your camera under control. Is last week, or maybe it was the week before, I went out with James Wisdom to see John Swirk, the scientist one of the scientists that was behind the research that then it got picked up by the media and then got sensationalized by the media.
Mhm.
But it was awesome. So we went in there and we had about an hour. It was probably just about an hour long interview, and we beamed in with a Tattoo Now Business Roundtable that meets every Wednesday, so that they were able to ask questions also, and it was great. And again, part of it is just talking to the scientists about what their actual findings were, and what their actual motivations are and where their funding is from. Well, it was great. Like I said, there's so many rumors and whatnot that go around, and I'm not going to say it's not. When the media sensationalizes, the summarization of someone who doesn't understand the science is, quick, summary of what they read real quick that they heard from somebody else. It just gets out of control really quickly. And so,
It
in
is
any event,
cool, Gabe. It like in the position that either one of us are in, we get to see so many times, like with different projects that we're working on and different people that we're working with. We kind of get to see behind the curtain so many things that, like, I mean, I have to catch myself sometimes because, like, I'll spurt something out, like, why don't they just do this? Like, it's common knowledge, but the things that we get exposed to is not common knowledge for the average tattooer or business owner, but like day in and day out, we get to see behind the curtain in so many ways, be it business or the science or the biology. I just,
or the
it's
history.
a
Remember,
pretty,
we have
yeah,
to get some of the history people back on too.
yep.
Uh,
It's a pretty cool perk of doing what we do is seeing behind the
very
curtain.
thankful to to reinventing and to you and to James and everybody that's doing all the streaming. And it's we've been doing it for years, and so the and to everyone's credit, instead of going for the cheap clickbait views, right? And we talk about tattoos, it's not super sexy, but it's high quality, and so the scientists get it, right? So they'll talk to the news outlets, but
Hmm.
then they'll allow us to come in there. And James has some really awesome handheld footage. We shut off the cameras after this interview, and uh, we got to see, some of the science actually, the PhD students and the different science people that were doing the actual studies were on. Well, let me share a couple minutes of this, 5 or 6 minutes, and then we could maybe discuss it a little bit, and then hop on with Whitney.
Nice.
So this is John Swerk from the University of Binghamton, and we'll have the full edited video of this out soon enough. But we're gonna watch a clip of this interview with James Wisdom and John about John's findings in the inks studies recently.
So, what can us tattooers do? What can the practitioner do at this stage? What's the most sound advice from your perspective?
Yeah.
Because you are involved with us. Actually, you're a part of this all. And so, what do you what could you suggest? Speculative.
I think the most important thing is demanding more accountability from manufacturers, right? Yes, some of these companies are massive corporations, but their business doesn't exist without tattoo artists. And I think, like any sort of collective action, if tattoo artists demand, better manufacturing practices, demand, better validation of what's going in the inks, right? Demand more transparency for the process by which raw materials are being handled, inks are being made. That's going to put pressure for change from the bottom up, right? And without the industry, without the artist, there is no tattoo ink industry. So I think that's number one, right? That I think it's totally reasonable and appropriate for artists and clients to say, you need to do a better job. And honestly, our study is not the first to highlight deficiencies. This is certainly not the first to highlight deficiencies with some of the same manufacturers. Right? You can find work coming out of Europe 10 years ago with problems with the wrong pigments being in there. So these companies have known for a long time in some cases that there are issues, and they've ignored it. And they've ignored it because nothing has forced them to change. And so, if people don't want the FDA to be as involved, then they need to force the change. And I think that's always been something that the tattoo community has done, right? It's always been a dialogue amongst artists about what inks are showing problems, what pigments are showing problems, where is there a concern we shouldn't be using that, right? So the tattoo industry already has this sense of, grassroots policing itself. I think people should be thinking about these companies and saying, why aren't you providing us better inks? You should be explaining to us how you know that your materials are good. You should be working with, manufacturing standards to guarantee that we're using good inks, because if there's a problem, it's coming back to us. It's not coming back to them. So I think that's number one, right? And then I think number two is the same idea as always, right? That continuing education, engaging in the wider community, finding out what people are seeing is important. One of the things that I've always worried about is that with the explosion of tattooing comes the potential for more mischief, right? For people to get into the ink manufacturing business that aren't in it for the right reasons and that don't care about making a safe product. And, unfortunately right now we're in a world and in a system where those kind of issues are only going to be flagged by artists saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm using this ink and I'm seeing all sorts of problems. Is anybody else seeing that? And it's only through having a wider community that's engaged in dialogue can we start to identify those problems and then, maybe enable somebody like me and my group to figure out what's going on and say, hey, wait a minute, here's a problem. This shouldn't be in here. Or like, what is this thing? What is it breaking down to? Things like that.
Ultimately, it seems about something about excellence, right? Because we would all agree that we need to purchase our ink from a reputable distributor, so that way you're not getting something that's counterfeit, like you're saying. But of course, the next step is also to demand accountability. I believe that the Alliance of Professional Tattooists is also engaged in this mission. I think they truly want to, see accountability. And also, I really appreciate what you said about sort of mitigating the government's response here.
Yeah.
Would probably enjoy self-regulation better than some kind of overt technocratic sort of, overreach, I suppose.
At the end of the day, MOCRA is the law of the land.
Yeah.
And so the FDA and the government is going to have some hand in regulating inks. But just like with anything, right, if the industry is doing a good job of policing itself, of being proactive, right, when the FDA comes and says, tell me about your manufacturing practices, tell me about your labeling, give me a bottle of your ink to check, right? If all those things are already in place, FDA is very limited in resources, right? And there's no additional resources put forward from MOCRA. So my sense is that the FDA is perfectly happy to allow the tattoo industry to operate as long as it's showing that it's following the rules that have now been laid out.
So that's the, a little bit of a clip. Let me stop screen sharing here. There's a full hour-long video there, and it's important to note that on the call, with us, asking some questions of John, there were artists that have busy studios that were like, look, we're tattooing, a bazillion people, and we're not seeing any issues. And then another artist who, was having, some issues and knew somebody who had the lymph nodes, removed in part because of something to do with the inks and as we're, heavily tattooed people, right? So John, there's a big difference between having a small little banger and having, blackout arms, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So what was your thoughts on what were your thoughts on that little clip there? Is that the first time you've heard John, or?
I have actually I've heard a lot of videos, and I've sat in on a few meetings where he's joined in and contributed. One of the things I love is that, it takes a certain kind of like passionate nerd to even want to dive that deeply into the chemistry, like the fine chemistry of what we're working with and dealing with every day. Most tattooers don't even stop and consider what their pigments are. And being that I'm an oil painter, like I made the connection early on that like, oh, they're minerals just suspended differently. I made that connection very early, and it's crazy to see how many artists work with these materials, not understanding that like these are powdered minerals in a suspension, and that yes, there is acrylic in some of these formulas, most of these formulas. And then having that understanding of like, you know, actually what we are inserting into our clients, and like as a heavy collector myself, having confidence that like the products that have been used on me were safe, as opposed to like something that could have been sourced in a less expensive way for a similar result, however less safe, you know. So it's pretty scary to think about like regulations coming in and potentially shaking things up. But I think he really did make a good point that like of all the meetings I've sat in and listened in on, um, a lot of times we don't talk about the fact that the FDA does have like incredibly limited resources. So once they come in and really start like going over everything with a fine tooth comb, if we as an industry, if all the manufacturers have their ducks in a row and they're already like overly compliant and overly critical of their inks, when the FDA comes in and they're like, oh, you're already like self-regulating, well, I guess we
Move
leave.
on.
Yeah, like that would be the best case scenario, but it does all go back to the integrity of the manufacturers. Like that's what it goes back to. And as I like to consider myself a very ethical tattooer. As an ethical tattooer, I like to have faith in the companies that I'm buying from, that I'm getting quality materials and using those to make quality artwork. But like the average tattooer might not think about the quality of the ink that they're using. They might just use whatever they can get their hands on, the most like inexpensive. And then you run into, well, where do you get your inks from? Like, not like what sticker is on the bottle, but where did you actually order it? Because there are counterfeit products in every single industry that you can imagine. And when you think of something that is 1 ounce and it sells for $10 an ounce, like you could put anything in a bottle and put a sticker on it and make a buck, and a lot of people do. So that's something really to be mindful of that I don't think a lot of people consider is, if you're ordering something off of like one of the online sources, where is it really coming from? Again, early in my career, I made that connection. I've worked various levels of retail, so like I know how the counterfeit stuff works. I know that
Yep.
scam. So like for instance, I've used mostly Starbright ink most of my career. I do have other colors in my palette and I do use other brands as well, but Starbright's my go-to. Am I going to order that from any random online company? No, I'm going to order it right from Tommy's Supplies. I'm going to go right to the
Mhm.
source and order it, cut out the middleman. I know I'm getting it the most quickly. I know I'm getting it like in a timely manner that like my window for the expiration date is long enough that I'm not going to be throwing materials away and things like that. So for me, to avoid counterfeit products, I order directly from the source. And almost all tattoo manufacturing companies have their own websites and their own distributors. And there's not it you don't save money ordering from another source. And if you do, it's probably like that should be a red flag, because usually the pricing is pretty standard within like 50 cents or so
Yep.
on inks. You know what I mean? Like needles, it gets a little bit different, but there's a lot of things that are totally different when we have the needle conversation. But with the inks, most of the quality inks are usually about 50 cents an ounce. And if it's way cheaper than that, don't waste your money on it. Like if I could give you a piece of advice to break down what John was saying in a very layman's terms, like those are the where the regulations are coming in, is we've got to make sure this stuff is safe. And as a tattooer, one of the ways you can do that is to order it directly from the manufacturer or as close to the manufacturer as you can get. Now, like big supply companies obviously are safe, like Kingpin's ordering their products directly from the manufacturers and things like that. So, um, but yeah,
Yep.
careful not to order from like a fly by night warehouse on the other side of the planet.
Oh, so it looks like Whitney's beamed in here. Let's
Sweet.
click her in here. Whitney, how goes? Oh, Whitney, could you turn your phone sideways by chance?
Yeah.
Amazing, fantastic. Oh, wait a minute. That place looks a little familiar there.
Yeah. So I am
Awesome.
in,
You're at Unify.
yes, beautiful sunny Florida now. Thanks to
Awesome.
you for this connection. So
Fantastic. Oh yeah, no worries. That was fun. It came up in my memories. It was like
yeah,
maybe a little over a year ago. We did a Black and Gray week down there.
yeah, it was like a year ago to the day. I think this
Yeah.
was like the middle of the week last year.
And we could all thank our lucky stars that Bob is still here with us.
Yes.
I think he was banging on the door next door late one night because when
Yeah.
the instruction was deliver Bob to the house, not like drop him off in front of the house next door.
Yes. That was a great time hanging out with Bob.
Well, that's great. So tell us a little bit about the move there. So now you've been traveling around? You've got was it an RV or a massive RV? What do you got going on here?
Yeah, so I scrapped the school bus idea to just go right into being on the road. So I got an RV to pull with a garage separate space in the back to, if I need to or want to, like tattoo on the road, but also to mainly just hop around the country and visit friends, work in their shops for a little bit, and yeah, just take
Fantastic.
advantage of this career.
Awesome. Well, here, let me fire up some of your work here. I've got, let's see here. So now you're at Unified. Now, are you taking appointments there, or let us know how do people get tattooed by you, or what's your if now you're traveling around or whatever? How do people find out?
Mainly follow my Instagram, tattooing by Whitney. But I'm in Unify until July, and then I'll be back. I have to go up to Ohio to work incarceration, and then I'm gonna work on my Pittsburgh clients for a little bit, and then either go across the Midwest and back down through Arizona and work with a couple friends out there, and just kind of follow the good weather, and be back here through fall and winter and spring again.
Awesome.
So this
Yeah.
is kind of shifted to home base down here.
Oh yeah, awesome. And they're great. Pepper and
Yeah.
Bart and that whole crew. Here, sorry, let me.
Yeah, and the stuff that they have planned with the new location, we're actually doing a grand opening for the new shop in Palatka, May 11th.
Awesome. Hey, did you hear anything about the ink interview that we were playing before this, or?
I caught the last couple minutes of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how much the internet you catch while you're rolling around the country. Probably the perfect amount. But there was a study that came out where the inks were nearly all of the inks that were studied were mislabeled or didn't have either omissions or the ingredients list wasn't matching up appropriately to the stuff when they were looking inside of it. So.
Oh, okay.
And the biggest issue is that MOCRA there's some laws that have been put into place so that there's a lot more scrutiny coming from from the government, from the feds. It's a billions of dollar industry. How about that?
Well, of course, if they can get their hands on anything from us. But I mean, mislabeling something that we're putting in people's bodies is kind of important. So.
And I think that one of the bones of contention is that the liability, like the customer comes back to you if there's a reaction. And again, if you're using quality inks in proper ways, right, it's not as much of an issue. But if depending on the inks that are being used out there, right, the ink companies kind of don't get the liability, but they're making the money.
Right. Yeah.
And, at this point, there's billions of dollars at stake, and many of the ink companies aren't owned, by, tattooers, they're owned by, investment banks, and there's no harm, no foul, I suppose. But, this is great. So this is some color work here. You're not just black and gray all day.
Yeah, I've been doing a bit more color work lately. and enjoying it more now that I kind of approach it like black and gray, actually. So it's like as far as I apply it.
Could you expand upon that a little bit, or maybe do you talk about that in your seminar? That sounds.
Yeah. So when I first started tattooing, like everyone, like color has to be like solid packed and you want that saturation. So I would kind of like just basically overwork the skin. But now I've kind of the softer sweeping application that I do with black and gray, I do that with color now, and it comes out just as saturated, and in not as many passes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's almost like in my own color work, I almost call that like a fake glazing. Like if I were oil painting, I'd be laying a glaze of a bold, bright color, but in tattooing, I might be just like spreading it softly and subtly.
Mhm.
But that's a really good comparison to make, is because it really is basically stealing black and gray technique to apply color to make it look like a glaze if I were oil
Yeah.
painting.
Yeah, and like blending is so much nicer
Mhm.
now. Yeah, the edges don't come out as harsh, and the clients can sit through better. It doesn't, the skin doesn't get as red and uh, reactive because you're not doing as much trauma to it.
It's kind of, I think it's also like there's this confidence level you reach with your colors where you just know what that color is going to look like diluted with
Yeah.
the skin color, rather than diluting it with white or gray or whatever you're
Mhm.
going to cut it with. Actually, like I call it letting the skin breathe, but actually letting the
Yeah.
skin breathe through that color. And then
Mhm.
you might see mag marks at the time the tattoo is done, but once the tattoo heals, I like to call it the magic of the heal, but once that
Yeah.
tattoo heals, all those little needle marks become so subtle and soft, and it just makes the tattoo like settle into the skin
Mhm.
rather than looking like a sticker on the skin. I almost like to compare the style of working with color with, like, this is how like the great fresco painters must have worked into the wet plaster, like applying just
Yeah.
subtle touches of color, knowing that it's going to soften with the color of the plaster breathing through.
Yeah.
This is healed up really nicely.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So this is the after and then the healed hairy.
Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Yep, and
No.
this is a good example of, like, you can see like where you've got like the skin breathing versus like the more full saturation in those opaque grays.
Right.
So it's like a
Yeah.
really good, like, in the same piece, you're using multiple techniques, but they settle
Mhm.
in and work.
And the one that you showed before this one, Gabe, is actually what I did for my black and gray seminar, and then we decided to do color instead.
Awesome. Amazing. Nice. And which seminar was that?
Uh, last year at Paradise.
Oh, this is a nice. Amazing. That was awesome. You had a lot of people out for that.
Yeah, that was way more of a turnout than I expected, being my first seminar, and of course the imposter syndrome and like no one's going to show up for me, but it
Yeah,
was a
no,
really good experience.
awesome. And you're coming back, so it'll be.
Yeah,
I presume that you'll be expounding upon the seminar or teaching again. And
yeah. Hmm.
awesome. Yeah. No, wicked excited. We're ahead of the game this time. We actually have our postcards already going out to various conventions, and
That's awesome.
it's, we're
I've
feverishly
I
working behind the
inherited a
scenes.
stack. I will be taking up to Toledo. Is it this weekend? Is that this Friday? The Toledo show? I can't remember. But anyways, I'll have a stack of
Wow.
them I'll be handing out.
Oh, hey, there we are. Now we can see each other. Um, it's like convention season's like full on, huh? So you're hitting Toledo. That's awesome. Like Hell City's coming up.
Yeah,
The
actually, Jess, the True Tattoo Supply manager, she and I are rolling up together to hand out Hell City flyers. So I'll be following right behind with the Paradise flyers.
thank you so
Um,
much. It's
yeah, we're just
wicked
kind of
fun.
making a day of it. It'll be a delightful excuse for a day off. Both of us have been working really hard. I know during convention season, she's got like double on her plate because we've got all the conventions, plus she's still running the warehouse day in and day out. So
Uh-huh.
It will be a well-needed little road trip. It's like 2.5 hour drive from Columbus, so a couple hours up, and then we'll hop up to
The tattoo
Michigan.
world.
Yeah,
I
we'll
was
hop
just
up
gonna
to
sorry.
Michigan, hit some of our favorite dispensaries, and then we'll be back to
Bam.
business.
There we go. Yeah, I was just thinking the tattoo world where you're working so hard you want to take a break, so you drive
Yeah.
3 hours to a tattoo convention.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember this piece. You worked on this piece of paradise too. This is
Yep.
beautiful in
Mhm.
person.
Thank you. Yeah, she was a trooper for that. We did that over 2 days.
Awesome.
Very soft and subtle. One of my pet peeves with, and this is just me being fussy, but one of my pet peeves with black and gray work is that it's black and gray. It's not gray and gray and gray and gray and gray until you can't see any of the skin. Like it's some heavy black, a lot of soft grays, and then let the skin breathe.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
skin should be an element. Like no matter what
Exactly.
medium you're working in, that the ground should breathe.
It's
Yeah.
practically a
Now we
color
see
tattoo.
people overusing white, and I kind of view that as
Mhm.
like not necessarily a handicap, but like if you did it on toned paper, that's the whole point, is to use the midtone of the skin or the paper as either your midtone or your highlight, and then just work into that. And some people just like completely way oversaturate every inch of their client's
Every
arm.
inch has to be tattooed or it's not a
Yeah.
tattoo. I think this is a lesson that a lot of, I mean, as artists, we talk about balance in our compositions, and we talk about, having dynamic dark with bright highlights. Why don't artists, I guess, why is it such a struggle for so many artists to apply that to a tattoo? Like, why can't you just let the tattoo be an organic thing and let the skin breathe and use
Mhm.
minimal highlights? Sometimes I wonder if it's just a confidence thing where they just feel like they need to keep going in or it's not complete. But I think it almost shows a level of maturity as a tattooer when you are confident and just let the skin talk as well,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if I looked at this real quick, you could almost. It's almost like she's got like one color. Like the it's using her skin color. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, that
Yeah.
great effects. Great 3D effects. Fucking great. Okay. There we go. This is creepy. So now, how are you? Do people come to you with all sorts of different? I mean, clearly they're coming at you with different ideas, but how do you collaborate with your clients? Is this you have a lot of wanna-dos? Are you always doing epic consultations over Zoom while you're traveling, or is it you get what you get from the traveling gumball machine? No, sorry. Like, how does that process work?
Well, when I was with my clientele back in Pittsburgh, everyone knew like that I do realism and stuff like that. So it's pretty much they just send me what they want, and yes, we will make that happen. It's been interesting starting over somewhere where I'm taking walk-ins again and kind of having to um, combine what they're asking for and like what I do, because they have no idea who I am or what my work looks like right now.
Uh-huh.
So it's been fun going back to that and like having to collaborate with them a little more instead of just like, cool, we're gonna do this. And
Sure.
it's been nice going like having to do different styles again, like more simplified traditional type stuff, as opposed to like just the big giant projects all the time,
Mm-hmm.
which I do love doing, but it's nice to have those little guys come in.
Mhm. It's almost like a, I sometimes I feel like, it's like a pulling a past version of yourself out of the box and dusting it off
Yeah.
and being like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't done this in a while. Let's do this."
Right.
Um, I over the past, several months, I've done some, like, traditional and, like, neo-traditional looking tattoos where if you would line them up with, like, all the stuff that you see on my Instagram, it wouldn't even look like my work. But I almost
Yeah.
like that. I almost like being able to like, these are the things that I'm concentrating in right now, but I'm not necessarily pigeonholed to those specific things.
Yeah.
I also love that like when a specific idea calls for more than one trick, I can do it.
hmm
You know what I mean? I love that I can, like for instance, when you're combining with black and gray and color, like when you can pull in a color element or a color highlight and it's more than just popping blue eyes and a black and gray tiger. You know what I mean? We're actually like
Yeah.
incorporating the color as an element and we're directing focus with color or um I don't know. It's nice to be versatile, I guess is what
hmm
I'm getting at is when you have like when you can do realism with confidence. In theory, you should be able to do any tattoo style up to that. And
Yeah.
I feel like being well-rounded as an artist is something that's kind of gotten over in year two. So it's almost like realistic. Aren't you worried about like being a one-trick pony? What if this thing somebody comes and asking for something that's slightly what your wheelhouse? Do you want to
hmm
turn them away or do you want to like mix your style in with this other style and make something whole like totally new?
Yeah. And I'm hoping, and I'm sure it will happen, that it'll drive me into a different area. Like maybe I'll do what I've always wanted to do is more neo-traditional work, like combine my realism with more illustrative type stuff.
Mhm.
Or however that path gets set off. Like I've put in the years of the realism and all of that, and here's a fresh start to possibly go in a different direction.
Yeah, one of the things that I really enjoy doing is like I can play around with the realism or I can play around with like painterly, whichever direction I want to go. But then having the option to like pick and choose where you put those hard lines or where you put like
Yeah.
silhouetted leaves or negative leaves or whatever elemental thing you can think of. But I really love having the option to like kind of use all the sets of tricks to like trick the eye and trick the brain and like maybe
hmm
maybe each as we look into a piece each layer becomes a different technique rather than the whole thing being all realism or all painterly
Yeah.
like each and it kind of like drives the focal point. And this is a super good example of that. Like you go from very realistic at like the metal details and the further we get back into space it just becomes more and more painterly. You can pick and choose where those hard lines are
hmm
based on like is this what's in the photo? No, but what does the tattoo need? Does it need to
Yes,
be crisp up
exactly.
here? And sometimes the decision is a longevity decision. Like,
hmm
is it going to look more real if I put this hard line right here? Not necessarily, but will it hold up better and be a better
Yes.
tattoo 10 years from now? I feel like, when you dabble in all the styles, that's when you can just pull out whichever trick the tattoo needs. It's not just I can
hmm
only do this. It's you can pull out what the tattoo needs, whether it's your style. Because I feel like sometimes, especially like color work like this, once a tattoo gets so far along, it kind of becomes its own thing. Like whatever the plan was in the beginning, the tattoo evolves and grows and kind of turns into its own thing.
Yeah.
So when the tattoo asks for this, when you can give it what it's asking for. I think that's pretty awesome and like next level for a lot of tattooers, I think.
So,
hmm
so, so
And
uh, Creature's asking, is this a Molly Hatchet cover? It's a Francetta referenced.
yeah, the piece that you're showing now is from the Frank Frazetta painting, and then friend of mine did a cosplay of his how he thought the barbarian, the Death Dealer would look in full. So somewhere else in my Instagram is the whole back piece. But yes, that's a Frank Frazetta painting.
Awesome.
That was right there.
That is great. Awesome. Oh, and is this the black and gray version of or this is no, oh, you turn it from black and gray to color. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Certainly one of the things that I've noticed, and again, just from observing, um, almost all the really great color tattooers are awesome black and gray tattooers. Like Nico can pull out some like amazing black and gray work. It looks great. Um,
Yeah, 'cause black and gray is strictly values and contrast, and if you don't do it right in color work, it's going to be look flat.
yeah,
Hmm.
and I
So all
guess
the
you
training
kind
from black and gray.
yeah, you kind of do it there. One of the things that I've that I'll do is sometimes I'll take people's pictures and I'll just turn them in Photoshop into black and gray so I could see in my head. I'm like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something's missing. I don't know what. And then if you desaturate it, then it flattens out, or they have all the contrast there.
It's real fun not making art because again I get to but I know Photoshop enough so I could take people's work in and I could contrast things and put in lines and I'm like, that looks so much better, but I don't have to actually ever do any of it. This is another cool piece. This is awesome. I love these little
Thanks.
I think another beautiful trick that you demonstrate in your work really nicely is the value in just leaving things negative. Like we talked about leaving open skin, but like the whiskers,
Yeah.
like you don't need to outline the whiskers. You can just not tattoo it.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds so simple to say, like, just don't tattoo there, but
Yeah.
it's, and then once the tattoo starts to heal out, they become nice and soft, where if you put a hard line on it, you basically
and with how small that was, if I had hard lined it, it's going over the years, that's going to get bigger and fuzz out and not hold up as long as if you just leave it alone.
Yep. The textures in the fur compensate for any line that would be needed to make those whiskers stand out. But there was a tattoo earlier where I was just admiring like the rim lighting along the hair, where like you had like the crisp black in between the hair, but the rim lighting was nice and harsh. And I think what we were talking about something else when I saw it. Scroll back down. Let's see if we can find the one I'm talking about.
I love that piece. That's another fun piece. Ooh, these guys.
That's a good example of like the rim lighting on the hair. You don't have to make the hair dark. You leave the hair, just leave it. Just let it be. Let it breathe. The dark around the hair builds it.
Yes. I think this may be because I come from a painting background as well, but like if you look at all the old paintings, if you get so up close on it, it doesn't look like it should. Like it just mush. There's like stuff everywhere. But once you back up, that's when it all comes together. So for me, like I do that with my tattoos. Like you don't have to put in every little small little detail, because once you back away, that's when you really see it. Like I think people get caught up too much in like trying to put in every single little thing, but it's skin. It's not going to retain all of that over the years. So you kind of have to pick and choose the things that you do.
There's another highlight hair. Awesome separation there.
Yep. This sleeve had to have been so much fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I really get into like old science like this as well. So playing with all these, like going from portraits to like mechanical, it's like using a different part of your brain, but it's still all the same tricks,
Awesome. Are there any particular tattoos that you want to do? So you're back to doing, or at least for a while, as you're building up a clientele again. What comes in? Is there anything in particular that you'd like to? Well, I guess you were saying you'd like to start working on maybe some more neo-traditional type work.
If you scroll down just a little more, Gabe, the one in the bottom corner, that's the one I was talking about. The hair in that is so beautifully done. Like I said, I think we were talking about something else when we were on that one before, but that is an incredible example of like, you don't have to outline every hair. Sometimes you just got to worry about the background and the hair builds itself.
Yeah.
They just came out with a new album.
Oh, did they?
David Gilmour did, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. But, sweet.
I actually got stuck looking at the headstock of the guitar on that one too, like between the rim light on the hair and the softly out of focus headstock of that guitar.
Yeah.
And that's the picking and choosing of like the line work and realism. And I went over that in my seminar. Like you can really draw the viewer's eye wherever you want it to go, just by like, and also to reinforce for longevity. But yeah, like all the crisp lines around the hair, and like you're not supposed to technically notice the guitar, but that's not where the eye is first drawn until you step back a little bit and take it all in.
Yeah, this is just a super wonderful example of like all the tricks to make a nice, well-reading, long-lasting tattoo. It's like back to picking and choosing like where you put the detail. When you look at this, it's like the each layer is a different trick, like we were saying,
Mhm.
but you've got all the details just packed into that expression on his face, where everything else
Just
just
making
builds
sure I
the
tagged the right
story
David
around it.
Gilmour.
Oh,
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's just a wonderful example of like black and gray. All the like if I were judging, that's the kind of thing that you want to see on stage when you see black and gray work. Is it crisp? Is it soft? Is it
Mm.
black? Does the skin breathe? Is there white in it? If there's white in it, is it necessary? Is it not overused? Like, and that just
Yeah.
checks all of those boxes. And then again, you've got that depth because you've got that out of focus headstock, the focal point, and then the soft, dark background that makes everything come forward. It just checks all the boxes of a great tattoo.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I get lost looking at tattoos too. I'll get like I could talk, and then I get to looking and I get locked right in. Do you have
But yes,
any particular favorite pieces you want to dive into and talk about?
I don't. I mean, I was really proud of this one because of how soft I got her face, but still had all of the contours and stuff in it. And especially
I like
like the shadow under her chin and the depth there.
I have
Yeah,
just like
that
a
part's
random question. Do you like mix your own black and gray on the fly, or are you using a black and gray sets?
Nope, I use lately it's been Allegory ink, and I just do I go from full, half, 10, 4, 2, 1, and the number 12 or 16 caps.
Nice.
Yeah, I prefer having control over that. And they
Yeah,
never seem to be consistent enough in the pre-made ones. Funny
I
enough,
feel
like
the
that's
same
what the whole
way.
point. But
I also feel like like you just said, the control. Like I can, if I'm doing a black and gray piece, I can pick and choose. Like how dark does my dark need to be based on how dark my client's skin tone is? You
yeah,
know, like I usually do three. Like I do my black, and then I do basically dark, medium, light, and then I might have a cap of just my clear solution.
mhm.
But based on the complexion of my client, that those drop ratios change a little bit for me. Like,
Oh, okay,
you know, for some clients that are so incredibly pale that you can get away with like a 1 or 2 drop, that's
yeah, yeah,
wonderful. But on some clients, that's a waste of their pain to even use a
yeah,
wash that light. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
This is a great little job stopper here.
Thanks.
This is a super good example of like jumping right out of your wheelhouse too. We've got
Yeah.
different line weights, very traditional, but almost like neo-trad when you're playing around with the light thin lines too.
Yeah, when I first started tattooing, I wanted to do traditional, and like that's where tattooing came from. So that's what I wanted to do, but that's not what my brain said we're going to do. So it was always fun to go back and do little things like that. But I still, like you were saying, there's still not complete traditional. Some of that realism and other techniques always sneak in.
Hmm. Yeah, this is
awesome.
wonderful. There's a lot of really cool tricks in that water and in the sand, but this is going to age really nicely for a hand tattoo.
And
I
he's
also,
one of the best clients who actually takes care of it. He sunscreens and lotions.
one of the cool things about this is you consider where the leaves and where like the bubbles were going to fall on the knuckles. I
Mhm.
love on hand tattoos where the tattoo becomes more interesting as the hand moves, where it's like a deliberate distortion that makes it more interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, drawing and fitting things to the body, it
Mhm.
always makes it look so much better.
Awesome. Okay, so we are hitting the hour, so we have the option to revisit some topics, but I have a feeling that I don't know. It seems like that was an hour. Hold on, let me stop screen sharing here. So yeah, any closing topics or anything we want to touch base upon before we start tattooing and move on with the rest of our lives?
I'm actually looking forward to maybe next week I'll have some photos of this piece that I'm finishing up today. It's a floral piece. I don't do a lot of floral pieces anymore, usually like crazy science, space, or nature stuff. So it's like what we're talking about, a good example of like kind of stepping out of my wheelhouse and kind of like going back to what I used to do, like in maybe like my 5th or 6th year tattooing. So to pull in all the new tricks that I've added to my belt, I think this will be a fun one to share next week. So
Awesome. And at the sake or at the sake of repeating myself, do you want Whitney? Do you want to let people know some of your upcoming travels and how they can get tattooed by you and what you're looking to tattoo?
So always the best way is my Instagram, tattooing by Whitney. I will be at Incarceration in July, here in St. Augustine, Florida, at Unify Tattoo until July, and then I'll be back. And then yeah, just follow my Instagram for those in between. I'll be in Pittsburgh couple months of the summer, July and August. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well,
how long are you going to be in Ohio when you do the incarceration event?
Just that weekend,
Just that
July.
weekend?
Yeah, I think it's the 14th.
Have you done this event before?
This is the 3rd year.
Nice,
It's
okay.
awesome. So it's a big music festival, 3-day music festival, and we tattoo in the prison that Shawshank was filmed in.
Where Shawshank was
Yeah.
filmed. I have
Mhm.
never worked the show, but I've attended it several times.
Oh, yeah.
So it is a great show.
Yeah.
So if you're in the Ohio area, snag some tickets. It's definitely
For
worth
sure.
it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, and I am doing a free seminar at Hill City on the Saturday.
Oh,
So
awesome.
if anybody's going to Hill City, it's we'll do a business roundtable on how to get busier.
Cool.
And I can guarantee you that if you're complaining online about not being busy, then you could come to the seminar. I could give you 12 things to do, or not even me. There's other people, there's other shop owners, and we're do the whole roundtable thing. And then you can, then if you're not busy and you're complaining, then we'll be harassing you in the comments, being like, seriously, you're not emailing your mailing list, you're not throwing a customer appreciation party, you're not putting posters around, come on, put a little work in. Now, anyways,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's happening at Hill City.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, we'll
All
catch
right,
up,
well-
everybody. Thanks again, and I guess we'll see you next Tuesday at 11 a.m. live. Okay.
Cool.
End
See you
stream.
guys. Thanks for joining us,
Bye.
Whitney.
Yep.